The shock that shook your faith. Chosen one, let me speak gently to you. What you endured was not small. Divorce doesn't just end a relationship. It fractures the soul in ways few people truly understand. It feels like the sudden collapse of a future you had already lived out in your heart and imagination. One moment, you were building a life with someone. The next, you were standing alone in silence, trying to understand how everything you prayed for could fall apart so completely. That shock didn't only wound your emotions, it shook your faith. You prayed, you tried, you believed God would intervene, and when the ending still came, questions surfaced that you were afraid to say aloud. Did I misunderstand God? Did I fail? Did He turn away from me? Those questions did not make you weak. They made you human, and they did not remove you from being chosen. Chosen ones often feel deeper pain because they love fully, commit deeply, and believe sincerely. You didn't enter that marriage halfway. You gave your heart, your loyalty, your prayers, and your vision for the future. So when it ended, it felt like more than losing a person. It felt like losing a version of yourself, the version that believed love would last exactly the way you imagined. There were nights when your mind replayed conversations, decisions, and moments over and over again. You blamed yourself for things that were never yours to carry. You questioned why God allowed distance, betrayal, or silence to grow where love once lived. And the hardest part was pretending to be okay in front of people who had no idea how broken you felt inside. What hurt most wasn't just the separation, it was the spiritual confusion. You expected God to intervene in a specific way. You expected restoration. And when it didn't happen, God's silence felt louder than ever. But listen carefully. God's silence is not His absence. Sometimes He speaks the least when He is doing the deepest work. Not because He doesn't care, but because some lessons cannot be taught with words, only through experience. Your divorce caused you to question your worth, your discernment, and even your calling. You may have wondered, if I'm truly chosen, why would God allow this much pain? But being chosen doesn't mean being spared. It means being prepared, and preparation often looks like loss before clarity. You were not foolish for loving deeply. You were not wrong for praying for restoration. Those prayers were heard. But sometimes God answers by removing what prayer alone cannot heal. What broke was not your destiny. It was an illusion, a structure that could not support where God was leading you next. You didn't just lose a partner. You lost routine, identity, stability, and certainty. Grief came in waves, some days manageable, other days overwhelming. That wasn't regression. That was healing in motion. God is not disappointed in you. He is not punishing you. What you experienced was not rejection. It was redirection. And redirection always feels like loss before it feels like purpose. The enemy wants you to believe divorce disqualified you. Society may call it failure. Even religion sometimes replaces grace with shame. But God sees differently. He sees your heart, your endurance, and the strength forged in pain you never asked for. Untested faith is fragile. Faith that survives heartbreak becomes unshakable. You became more discerning, more grounded, more connected to truth rather than illusion. God didn't change His mind about you. He changed your direction. After the shock faded, many of you felt a quiet emptiness, not loud pain, just a hollow space. That space wasn't weakness. It was room God was creating. Before the divorce, your life was full of emotional labor, compromise, and constant effort to hold things together. When the noise stopped, the silence felt unbearable. But that silence was meant to reintroduce you to yourself. Familiarity is often mistaken for destiny. Just because something is known doesn't mean it's aligned. Comfort can quietly become a cage, and God will never allow His chosen to remain trapped, even if the cage is decorated with good memories. You may have felt judged or abandoned by people who didn't know the full story. That isolation was heavy, but God often separates His chosen from voices that cannot guide them into the next season. You questioned your discernment. You replayed red flags and blamed yourself. But discernment grows through experience. Wisdom is formed in consequence, not comfort. You didn't fail discernment. It was being trained. Sometimes God allows us to choose what isn't aligned so we can finally recognize what alignment feels like. The pain slowed you down. It forced honesty in prayer. You stopped performing and started surrendering. That shift alone proves God was still deeply involved. God did not leave you. He removed something. And there is a profound difference. He removes what cannot be healed, corrected, or carried forward, not to punish you, but to protect you. You cannot have peace while remaining tied to something that drains your spirit. Some relationships are instructional, not permanent. Chosen ones struggle with this because they are loyal by nature. You stayed longer, tried harder, forgave deeper, calling endurance faith even when God was calling you out. God saw what staying was doing to you. He saw love turning into survival and prayer turning into anxiety. And because He loves you, He intervened. Not everything that begins with prayer is sustained by God. Free will can lead to lessons instead of lifetimes. When something interferes with your calling, God steps in, quietly but decisively. Forced endings hurt because they bruise the heart and ego, but forced endings also save lives. What felt like loss was mercy in disguise. God shortened suffering you couldn't see ahead. Relational death is common for chosen ones. It's not just divorce. It's the death of who you were becoming in a relationship that no longer fits your calling. Identity must be protected for purpose to unfold. You were shrinking to keep peace, but peace that requires self-betrayal is not peace. God never asks His chosen to disappear to please Him. The stripping season followed. The quiet, uncomfortable phase where God removed what you leaned on instead of Him. Titles faded, roles dissolved. You were forced to ask, "Who am I without this?" That question wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to introduce you to yourself. In this season, you learned to say no without guilt. You stopped chasing closure. You stopped explaining yourself. Solitude became sacred. You learned the difference between being alone and being empty. God rebuilt your confidence through clarity, not validation. You forgave yourself. You gained authority. You learned self-leadership. The divorce didn't delay your destiny, it rescued it. God removed what was slowing you down. What felt like collapse was correction. What comes next is alignment, not rushed replacement, but restoration. Discernment, peace as your compass, boundaries that feel natural, love that feels safe and mutual. You are not starting over. You are starting aligned. You were never broken. You were being built. What God removes, He replaces with what fits your calling. Stay grounded, stay aligned, and trust the plan unfolding before you.